There we go. Let's get into loops. My most current version. There we go. It's breakfast time. Here I go, teasing you guys with food again. All right, I'll get this out of the way. It's a sweet way to start your programming day.
Are you supposed to be sharing your screen?
See, perfect. That's exactly why you got your microphones open, so you can actually see what's going on. Thank you for letting me know. Here we go. Now you see the reference I'm talking about. Loops. I think those are probably generic Fruit Loops. I don't think they're actual Fruit Loops, but get the idea here. Loops go round and round. A loop's a circle. So they're aptly named. And someone typed into the public chat here, it's a way to make something happen over and over again. Very true. So each loop's going to have a couple of different things. And so these are vocabulary words I want you to start to put away. If you take notes, that's great. Do you guys know what a sentinel is? Like a guard? Somebody who watches over something. They go back and forth on guard duty. You've probably seen them in some of the action adventure games, and definitely in Splinter Cell, there's a variety of games where you have a sentry or a guard that moves back and forth. So we call a sentinel value, that's the term we use to talk about what makes a loop start or stop. You want to have a condition similar to an if statement, or else a loop, you can't repeat things forever. Well, you could, but it wouldn't make good programming sense. So usually there's a condition that's going to change. That's called the sentinel value. Any questions about sentinel value? There we go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Somebody who's making sure that things happen when they should and wouldn't happen if they're not supposed to. There are a total of 3 loop statements. So the funny thing is, one of them has the word for, but it's spelled differently. 3 different loops. Anybody, let's see, show of hands, who's used loops before? Could have been in another language, could have been in Java, could have been in JavaScript, could be in Python. If anybody has some experience doing C#, it doesn't matter. Anything, you might have had some experience with loops. All right, so we only have a couple of people that have done loops before. These are going to look very similar to other programming languages, but other languages might have additional control structures. A control structure is another vocabulary word, and it could mean one of a couple of things. An if statement, conditional branching, is considered a control structure. But it only happens once by itself when you if, or else if. Those are things that control the flow. And so there's a concept we're about to start to look at, and that is a flow chart, which uses predetermined shapes to indicate what the logic is on a flow. You'll see these in a lot of programming languages, and if this is your first programming language, then this is your first exposure to the idea of logic. And so this will make future programming languages easier. So I've left these on the screen for a minute, just so you can kind of process. There's 3 different ones. The first 2 are so close, they're almost the same, but they do act differently in some important ways. So I want to make sure you understand there are 3 different ways to repeat. They can be misused as well, and we'll cover that, because when you start to program in an industry setting, one of the first things they're going to have you do is update other people's code. So even if you have your own style and your own way of doing it, and you think this is the right way to do it, you have to be prepared for people that don't do it that way. So the tricks I teach you, like the literal on the left, not everybody does that. And now that you know how to recognize it and spot that it can prevent you from a logic error, you might start to do that as you come across other people's if statements. They're not following that standard. So this is an example of a flow chart, and if you've seen one before, that's great. If you haven't, that's okay. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more for you here. There is arrowheads here, and so this is a top-down entry into this world of a flow chart. And so if you imagine kind of they're gravity fed typically, and flow charts are kind of in the same idea of go back one, I'm sorry, of water coming down. So we're going to consider if something's true or false. And a while statement checks the condition first. It says, if this is true, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to come back after I've done something and check if it's still true. So an example for this might be, and we'll look at an example in a second, is that you're not going to do it automatically. You want to check first if it's true before you allow it to happen. Any questions about this so far on a while loop? So let me ask you guys a question. Does a while loop happen automatically? I'll start this as a poll. Does a while loop start automatically no matter what it happens? Or does it check the, so does it happen automatically? Just select yes or no on the response there. A couple of more people we're looking to get responses from. Nobody sees who says what, so this is private, just like your cameras are private between me. One more person I'm waiting on a response from. There we go. So there's the polling results. I'll publish those. I don't know if you can see it when I'm sharing my screen, but basically there was a couple of people that thought it would do it no matter what. And that's not the case. Now, it's going to check to see if it's true. A good example of a while loop is, well, I have ammo I can shoot. So it would check first, is there ammo? And if there's not, it would go click rather than bang. So while I have ammo, I can shoot. Here's another example. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but people tend to put garbage in your input when you ask for something. And so this is an example. This happens to be in Java, but it's the same structure in C++, and I like to mix things up. A while statement, which is using the reserved word while. It's going to turn blue when we're in the Microsoft world. And here's our condition. Now, there's an operator in the middle there. Who could tell me what that is? We've used it in the past. It's 2 vertical bars. Does anybody remember what that is? You can type it in public chat. It's an or. So it's saying if this part is true or if this part is true. So it's saying if the month is less than 1. So is there a -5 month? No. And or if the month is over 12, is there a 13th month? No. So the valid values are 1 to 12 here. And so what that would do is it would basically say if the month isn't in the right range, tell them enter a month and then give them the range. That would repeat over and over again until they actually gave you a number between 11 and 12. Sorry, between 1 and 12. I'm going to have to put you guys on a hold for a minute. Hello, it's Joe.
You are now muted.
Yeah. Would Wednesday have any openings by chance? I'll take. Yes, it does. Sure. No, just so I kind of, I'll just the nurse. Is that probably right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. And my insurance is the same, and immunizations are covered at 100%. So it should just get processed through. I just making it simpler for us later. Okay. All right. Thanks for your help. We'll see you for Wednesday. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye. My apologies. Unusual that I have to take a call like that in the middle of a structure or a meeting, but let's get back to it. So here's an example where we want to make sure that we're getting a valid value. Now, just below it, this is actually an interesting trick. What we're
Muted,
doing.
sir.
Oh, say again. Turn my webcam off. Is my screen up now? We good? Not muted.
You are
Unmute.
now unmuted.
Okay, there, I'm unmuted. Thank you, I'm back. All right, so here's an interesting trick down below. What we're doing is we're putting an invalid value in here. We're putting a -1 into months. So not only are we checking the range, but we're forcing it. Now, a lot of times I've told you to initialize your values with a 0. A 0 would work as well. But what I'm trying to do is emphasize a programming methodology, which is if you put an invalid value in there and then check for a valid value, you're going to force that loop to continue until they give you a valid value. Now, we're not covering it in this particular example, but when you write a program and you're letting people put in data, and it's not just a controller that's controlling the input, when you give them a full-blown keyboard, you're asking for a number and they're going to type in banana. It's going to happen. It's just, that's how people are. They're just either silly or they're trying to hack or they're not paying attention, but people are going to put garbage in. And there's do you guys know what happens if you get garbage in? You get garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. It's a programming terminology. So you want to make sure that you don't bring garbage into your program so you don't put garbage out. The next, the next loop we're going to cover is very similar. It has the word while in it, but it has the word do first. This is going to basically say, I'm going to do it once no matter what. This would be a bad example for checking for ammo when someone's going to shoot. Because if they had 0 ammo and you had this looping structure, they'd be able to shoot one time. So it would be bang, click, 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 click. You'd get that first shot off even though your ammo was at 0. So why would you want to use something like this? Why would you want to repeat it for sure once? Well, this prevents you from having to put that negative value or the 0 into your initial value for month, for example. Another example is where you want to bring up a menu. So you might say, here's the menu options, pick a valid one. So you know you're going to want to put the menu up, like PvP, campaign. You want to give them all those options. Common experience for people to see a menu before they're even playing games, or it might be at an ATM, and it's going to bring up a list that says deposit, withdrawal, check balance, transfer, that type of thing. It's going to paint that menu first, and then it's going to ask or continue until they're done. So now we've got two different things going on. We've got the do loop, which does until while it's true. We have the while loop that doesn't happen unless it's true. They look very similar. The while loop has got a semicolon at the end of it when it's at the bottom. If it's at the top, it's gonna not have the semicolon because the do is the thing that's controlling the while. So they look very similar. We'll play with those today. Here's the difference. In a do while, you're going to do it first, and then you're going to check to see if it's still true. So those are similar. Side by side. Notice where the do box is, those steps you're performing, versus the condition. So now that I got them on the same screen, can somebody give me an example where you might want to do something no matter what in a program or in a game, and then check if it's still true? So who was playing Among Us earlier? And when the game started, do you have anything? Are you moving? Is there anything going on right away? You got tasks, okay? Is there anything that you don't have that might repeat later? I'm just trying to see if you can think in your own mind of the applicability that sometimes, there you go, sometimes you want to do it no matter what. Other times you only want to do it if it's true. For example, breathing, you want to do no matter what, right? But You only want to sleep when you're tired, I guess, right? Because otherwise you're not living if all you do is sleep. Snacks. There you go. Cool. Moving on. There's one more loop we want to get to. This is the same thing, which is a do while. And because the do while is going to be checking to see if it's in range, it's going to do it once for sure, and we don't have to worry about putting that other value in it. You're going to see both in industry. Now, this third loop looks a little bit complex when I first bring it up. So all three of these have something going on in them. They initialize, they kind of get things ready. They check a condition, and then if you're doing it numerically, you want to maybe change it. So, for example, if your ammo is set to 27, you would say, shoot the gun, lower the value by 1. Shoot the gun, lower the value by 1. And so that continues to go down until you reach your point where the condition says, you're out of ammo. You're not going to be able to shoot anymore. There's actually semicolons in the middle of a for loop. And with online GDB, when you type in for, it's going to bring up a template for you to help you remember that you need to have those semicolons. All three loops have that sandwich, just like an if statement. So each of those is actually optional, and it makes for some really funky looking for loops. I've seen people use a for loop with the sandwich, and they just have 2 semicolons in the middle, and it basically means do the loop forever. Which is not a good method. It causes confusion because they end up having to use a break statement or a go-to statement, things that are there, but they're really not the right way to do things. They're kind of forcing control based on a condition. You'll see it in assembler a lot, but it's not something we should be doing in C++. So this is what it looks like in a flowchart method. First, you set things up like my ammo's 27. Then you go, all right, do I still have ammo? Go ahead and shoot and either make it higher or lower. Now I'm using increment here, but it could be decrement. One makes things higher, one makes them lower. So you can count up or count down with a loop like this. Any questions about the structure of a for loop so far? Okay. So it looks like this. And what I'm trying to show you is with the same color is this initialization idea. It happens with a while loop. It's just above. The idea of the condition, it happens in a while loop. It's right in the middle. And these increments or decrements, the thing that changes the value, is somewhere in the middle of the body that you're doing. So all of the elements are there. They're in the same, they work the same way, but they're in a different order. This is a flowchart of a for loop. They're calling it a control variable. That's the sentinel. It's the same thing. I'm going to put this up as an activity for us. We're going to do this in class. I'm going to show you how to do one. We're going to be working with these two. We're not going to ask for any input. We're just going to process and do 2 things on the screen using each of the 3 looping structures. This one's going to be different. I'm going to take that idea of the guessing game where the user guesses the number and we have a secret number, and then we can actually add a random number so that within a certain range, somebody has to guess a number and it will repeat until it's guessed. So this is a very simple structure in terms of a game, but like I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100. Can someone tell me what that number is? 1 to 100. I'm looking at the public chat here. What number is it? I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100, a whole number. Yes, everybody got it. Because it wasn't random. You know my number. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to open up online GDB. You can now put me in a window on the side. I'm going to stop this particular recording because I've talked about the loop types.